Hey everybody, welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo O. That's right. Hope you guys are doing well today and enjoying the Martin Luther King time. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day out there. Super awesome. So that'll be cool. Nice day in the old Pueblo. We get a chance to start our day with getting in the Word a little bit. We're in Psalm 139. Boom, boom, boom. That's awesome, right? Sylvia, my wife's favorite chapter of the Word of God. And you'll see why pretty soon. It's awesome. Anyway, we also are going to be, let's see, what are we going to be doing? I don't know. But we're almost going to be finishing up the Psalms. That's what we almost are going to be doing. So this is amazing. I mean, we're not that far away from completion of the largest book of the Bible, which is these songs called the Psalms. And a lot of them are written by King David. 139 starts off, by the way, for the choir director, a Psalm of David. So David wrote this one as well. And before I go any further, you can always check out the archives of the Devos with Bo at my YouTube channel. Just type in Bo Willette on the search bar in YouTube and you'll find me. You can subscribe if you want. That way you do get notifications when I do upload things, and I usually upload archives pretty regularly and format them by playlist so you can go through the Bible with me. And that's what I do. My devotions are through the Bible. I just go book by book and just pull out the gems. And sometimes they end up in little Bible studies, if you will, but not too deep, not too rich. But they are, I think, super rich at times because we get to see the flow of the Bible, how God's working in people, why there's books like Leviticus or Exodus in the Bible, why they're so important, what offering means and different words mean, and how that relates to our lives. So anyway, let's get into it. And being a SoCal kid like myself, I do not come from a church background. Not a religious background at all. If anything, a very secular, progressive background. And lo and behold, just reading this book, these collection of books, certainly changed my life. So, 139. O Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. That's a great one this morning. You know, you've examined my heart. Oh, yeah. You know, how does that make you feel? To know that God examines your heart and you know everything about me. Nothing can be hidden from God. What an amazing passage, right? We would figure that if God's really God, that God really knows our heart. But I love the confession of it. You know, just the idea of it in a song saying, God, you know everything about me. You know, a lot of songs have kind of that kind of idea of like, you know, when it comes to like, you know, relationships, right? Like love songs, you know everything about me. You're my everything. But here, the beautiful thing about David's lyrics is they're addressed to God. And if you will, his adoration and his affections are about God. God, you know everything about me. Everything. And that's all the good, the bad, I guess, and the ugly, right? And it says, you know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts when I'm far away. Even when I'm far away, you know. Even when my thoughts are gone astray, even when my thoughts are way over there, they just don't seem to be directed in the right spot. God, you know where they're, you know me. You know everything about me. That's cool. You know that what I'm going to say even before I say it. That sounds kind of interesting, right? The New Testament, Jesus says, hey, the Lord knows what you're going to say, what? Even before you say it. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So this is saying, hey, you know, God knows your mind. You know, he knows exactly, you know, what's going on with you. So even before we say it, the Lord knows. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. God, that idea of anointing, I guess, laying on of hands. You might have heard those in the Bible. But notice it says that you place your hand of blessing on my head. that idea that the Lord puts his hand on you and it's a hand of blessing. The interesting thing I think too is my hand a hand of blessing, to people? Am I really a hand of blessing? Or am I more of a hand of trouble? A hand of, trial? What kind of hand am I, in the lives of other people? Do I lift their burdens, or do I make their burdens heavy? That's a good one for you and I to think about. Because sometimes you might think you're helping, but you're hindering. And, it's okay to be honest about where you're at. And that's the beautiful thing about the Psalm, is God knows. He knows why you're doing what you're doing. He knows you're maybe trying to compensate for discontentment or insecurity or fear. And that's why you're doing what you're doing. It's not really about faith or about love, but it's about these other things that are going on in you. Well, the Lord knows. He knows our heart. He knows when our thoughts are far away, right? Verse 5 says, "You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand." Man, it's amazing for me to think about God loving me, God caring for me. I mean, isn't that a cool thought? Like, how can God, the creator of the universe, be really concerned about little old me? How many of us have thought that way in our lives? But yet God does. And I guess if God is caring for us, we might need to be caring for others. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. Even if I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell in the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night, but even in darkness I cannot hide from you. To you the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. Man, that is such a cool section in the sense of just the lyrics of it. You got to just appreciate the tune. I mean, not we don't know the tune, but the song. You got to appreciate the song. It's super cool. I mean, how neat, right? How can I escape from your spirit? If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the place of the grave, you're there, right? If I ride the wings of the morning, right? If I'm on the bird, man, and I'm flying that way, you're there, right? If I go to the farthest oceans, if I'm a sea creature and I'm down in the depths of the sea, you're there. Wow, have you ever seen those cameras deep down in the sea? They kind of look spooky, yet God is there. He is ever present. He is ever present in my life. I could ask something to hide me, the darkness to hide me, but it can't be hidden from you. Darkness has nothing on you, right? It's as if it's light. Unbelievable. I mean, just very cool the way those lyrics are weaved. And that's why they impact us, because we go, wow, that's so cool. The omniscience of God, right? That omniscience. God is everywhere. God is ever present. The Spirit of God is hovering over everything, like it says in the book of Genesis, right? That presence of God. And I love how David says that, even in my darkest dark, have you had a dark hour? Have you had a time of despair? Even in that, God is ever present in our life. Man, that's really neat to think about. And, we think of so many people that even go through incredibly dark times in prison, in chains, being tortured for their faith in Christ. And yet, they remember this psalm that the Lord is ever present with them. Even the darkest dark cannot overpower God's presence. Man, that's powerful. What do we want more than anything? The Lord's presence, right? Yesterday at church, I was able to lead worship and did a song called I Love Your Presence. And you could see why. I Love Your Presence is really a psalm 139 kind of song, right? Loving the presence of God. Nothing can really darken the presence of God in our life. And the question always is do you believe that? Do you live your life as if God's with you? That kind of idea. Emmanuel, right? What does Emmanuel mean? God with us, right? When Jesus was born, Emmanuel, God with us. That kind of idea. Jesus is with you. Something to take home today from the devotion. It says, you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Man, God knows you so intimate. He knew you when you were being what? Formed and fashioned. And this is a psalm again of how God is like an artist. He's like a painter, right? He's like someone who is a sculptor. He's the one that puts things together. He puts you together. He puts me together. And just like a good artist or a good sculptor, when they make something, you kind of walk away from it, when you're watching it, and you're kind of blown away. It's like when you're at the mall. Remember those things? They were called malls, and you'd go to them, and they'd have maybe someone doing blowing glass, in there, a little kiosk. And you'd watch them blow that glass, and it looked like nothing. And then all of a sudden, and then it looks like something. And you're like, "Oh, wow, that's really cool." It's neat when something's being created. And David goes, "God, you are the most amazing sculptor." Even when I didn't know me, and even when I couldn't see me, and even though I didn't understand, what was happening, you were there fashioning me, forming me, making me, as an artist, doing your work, right, in creation. And I love that. And I was woven together, right, in the dark of the womb. What's in that womb? That's called a baby. That's called a human being, right? 139 makes it really clear that it's in the belly. When you're in there, you are a human being. It's weird that we have to point that out nowadays, but we've gone so astray. We've gotten so out of whack, out of sorts, that we've forgotten just the simple things in life that are true, right? That you're a human being, and you were fashioned, and you had a beginning, and you were made in a certain place, right? And we certainly have moved away from that. Have we gotten smarter? I don't think so. Probably not. Probably gotten, or just stayed in a blind state that we've always been since Genesis chapter 3, probably. So you saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. God, you know every day of my life. Wow, that's a neat thing to think about today, too, is that God knows this day. He knows tomorrow. He knew yesterday. He knows all the days of my life. He knows the things that I go through today. He knows the things that's gonna happen this year. I can kind of rest in that nothing takes God, if you will, nothing surprises God. Nothing, God can't say, wow, I'm shocked by that, And so when something comes my way, maybe I need to think about more like, hey, this is from the Lord. And maybe I need to look at it from that lens, is that this is something the Lord has brought my way for a certain reason. So every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. Wow, before one of my days took place, it was already laid out. The plan was already established. The path was set. Wow. That's kind of an amazing idea, right? That kind of predestination thought, right? Predestined. Fulfilling your destiny. There's already a plan for you, right? It's just walking in that plan. I don't know it. I'm not sure what it's going to happen. I don't know what, but I know God has that purpose and a plan for me. So you can see where that kind of phrase comes into being. God having a purpose and a plan. Every moment's laid out before a single day had passed. So how precious are your thoughts about me, O God? Notice David doesn't look at, man, God, you're so ticked at me at this point. But he says, hey, God, how precious are your thoughts towards me? Man, that's a cool way to look at life. God's thoughts towards you are precious. He sees you as beautiful. He sees you as the most awesome thing. His thoughts towards you cannot even be counted. They are so many, right? He knows all about you. He knows you're going forth. He knows everything, right? You can't even flee from his presence. He's right there with you, right? It says they cannot even be numbered, right? In verse 17, how precious are his thoughts towards you. They cannot even be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. Isn't that cool? It's like your thoughts towards me are more than any, there are millions and millions, right? Think of it that way. Do you think of your life that way, that God's thoughts are towards you? Now, think about it when you're a kid and you see that girl or guy or whatever, and you're just like enamored by them. Don't you want their thoughts to be on you? I mean, don't you go, man, dude, I wish that person's thoughts were on me? And you fall into this like puppy love thing where you're just infatuated with this thought of maybe this person sees me and knows me and likes me, and maybe they can notice me. And that's such a big deal. But here it's talking about God. God notices me. God loves me. His thoughts towards me. Do you see the passion and just in this psalm? I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable. The passion that comes out of these lyrics. David, man, really had an emotional heart towards the Lord. I mean, this guy loved God with a passion. And you can see it just flow out of this, right? The question is, in the devotion, is do I see if God is passionate for me, right? That he thinks of me, that he's with me. He's all the time with me. And that his thoughts towards me cannot even be counted. That's pretty, and that can change your heart, change your life too. Maybe you're beating yourself up too much. Maybe you're always condemning yourself. Maybe you're always hard on yourself, right? Maybe you think of your past and you just kind of, oh man, I'll never change, or I'll never this. And you just get into that mindset instead of just remembering that God's thoughts towards you cannot even be counted. They are so many. His thoughts towards you are precious, right? Precious, right? Towards you. And maybe you need to get your mind off of the way other people see you, or maybe you see yourself, and maybe get your mind on a new identity and how God is looking at you, right? Doesn't mean we don't need to change, right? Doesn't mean we need to stay the way we are. But it certainly is the first thing that we need, this first step, if you will, for us starting to see things right. That God is in my corner. God's on my side. When I'm in the battle, in the boxing ring, I got a great coach. He's in the ring with me, right? And he's with me in the battles, in the temptations, in the trials, those type of things. I can look to him. It's never good, man, when you start getting into that idea that God has an evil eye for you or something like that. David said, no, man, your thoughts towards me are precious. Verse 19 says, oh God, if only you would destroy the wicked. What a cool change, huh? God, if only you destroy the wicked. Get out of my life, you murderers. Man, David says, God, you are with me. You're with me wherever I go. Nothing can stop you from being with me. Your thoughts towards me are amazing. Hey, God, by the way, can you destroy all the wicked folk out there? I just find that so fascinating because it's almost like in the lyrics, David jumps back to the reality of his world. where he looks into his world and he sees just utter madness, right? He sees just hate, people hating all over the place. And he goes, God, well, can you do something about it? Will you do something? I know you're with me. I'm trusting you're with me. I'm trusting your thoughts towards me are amazingly precious, Lord, that you've known everything about me, my life. You know my going in. I confess that to you, Lord. You know all things. Now, can you do something? Can you move? Right? It says they blaspheme you. Your enemies misuse your name. People just don't care about God anymore. I think of how many times I blasphemed God's name. How many times I had no clue what I was talking about. Right? And then there's some people who know what they're doing, but they continue to blast, right, God. And there's times where I knew it was wrong, but I would just put in that, thing anyway. I would say that thing anyway, just to get at that person, knowing that it really wasn't a good, godly thing to say at all, but I would say it. That kind of idea. He sees this all around him, and I'm sure you see it all around our world too. What do we see in our world? Is the Bible painting a correct picture of our world? Do we see murderers all around us? Yeah, I think in the last few years, we've seen one of the biggest, largest, maybe, one of the bigger, maybe, times in our world where people have lost lives. And I don't even think we know it as human beings. We've chalked it up as something, as this and that, but we don't understand there's things behind the power structures that are at hand. Big governments, big corporations, all wanting to make money, off of us, all wanting to control and how things and mandates and different things and things happening and our bodies reacting weird and everybody going through things and stuff like that. And man, could it be that there's a large work of murdering that's around us in the name of some other slogan that's very good that no one would think of murdering when you hear the slogan? But you know what I'm talking about, this devious kind of behavior that really has people have lost their lives by the millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and keep going, right? Just before our eyes, but we don't see it. Could it be that we live at a time where, we have an Adolf Hitler that's bigger, that's been even worse, and we don't know it, and we don't see it? Could we really be that blind as a group of people, of a species? When I was growing up, I always thought that we would be smarter and that my generation would learn from the things of World War I, World War II, things of that nature, from Vietnam even, that we would learn things. But I wonder today if we've really learned, or if everything is just right under our nose and we're just narcissistically blinded. It's a thought. But David says that, hey, get out of my life, you murderers. Wow. That was in his day. They blaspheme you. And in verse 21 says, "O Lord, shouldn't I hate those who hate you? Shouldn't I despise those who oppose you? Yes, I hate them with total hatred, for your enemies are my enemies." Wow. Now, isn't this amazing how David says, God, whatever you think about someone, I want to think about the same thing about that person. And I think King David's right on with this. Meaning, the right attitude to have is always, hey, God, how do you want me to look at this? What is how you see things? And me as the king of Israel, I want to see that the same way. Your enemies are my enemies, that kind of idea. And that's a good thing to think about. And that's I think a right-on connection. God, let me see things the way you see them. And that's really what confession's all about, saying the things about something that God says about it. Keeping it real. God, who are your enemies? Lord, let that be my enemy as well. When Jesus comes on the scene, Jesus says, hey, I want you to love your enemies. Do good to those who spitefully use you. And Jesus is saying, hey, I want you to see things through my lens. Do you see how Jesus is saying, hey, I am the authority. I want you to see things now the way I'm looking at things on this planet. Just as I am going to love my enemies, I want you to love your enemies as well. Just as I do good to those who despitefully use me, I want you to do good to those who spitefully use you. Man, I mean, Jesus gives us that Psalm 139 idea that King David's pressing into. However you see it, God, that's the way I want to look at it. You know? However it is. God, these are your enemies. These are the enemies of Israel. That's how I want to see it. If they're the enemies of you, they want to tear down Jerusalem, they want to tear down Israel, God, let me see them the way you see them. Let me have that same attitude. Well, Jesus gives his church an idea too, right? Hey, you want to see things the way I see them? This is the way I see them, church. And this is the way I want you to act, church. You know, and Jesus gives his command. Wow. Very cool. And he says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. Wow. So he just gets done saying, God, these are my enemies. I hate them with a total hatred. Lord, search my heart, man. See if there be any wicked way, anything that offends you, man. Let's deal with that. If I need to change my attitude towards something, let's change my attitude, right? If we need to switch gears, right, and downshift a little bit, pump the brakes, put in the clutch, then let's do that too. If we need to go full reversal, then let's go full reversal. But lead me along the path of everlasting life. Isn't that cool? Let me walk the way of eternal, everlasting life, the way to everlasting life. Let me not get off that path. So I love that real great, honest heart there at the end of God, search my heart, right after he gets done expressing his anxiety, his anxiousness. Lord, I am anxious in my culture. I feel a little discombobulated, and I need you to do a work in my heart and change that heart. And sometimes when we're doing this, search me, O Lord, sometimes we have to get out a pen and paper and write out a little about our anxieties or our fears, our insecurities, and really search our hearts, find out that there's a lot going on in there, in that heart. So 139 is a staple psalm. It is one of those precious psalms about God's presence in our life, his faithfulness in our life, his, in a sense, thoughts of preciousness towards us. And then also about the reality of needing our hearts changed, right? Filled with anxiety and all the stresses and cares and concerns of the world, and asking God to really put us on the right path, right? Set our feet on that everlasting light path. So, man, a very cool chapter, one that you could study and kind of bounce all over the place with throughout other scriptures. But for our devotional purpose, just a lot of good stuff to think about, right? Absolutely. So hopefully that changes your mind, changes your heart, changes your attitude, and, you have a great day, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.